Hey guys, Rads here, and since I got a lot of requests to do a Brewmaster guide, I'm gonna try to cover it with my season 3 experience where I finished first in Mythic Plus on Raider IO, which is really nice. But anyway, without further ado and any more weird flexes, I'm just gonna jump straight into it with the but anyway, if you guys like the video and whatnot, do make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Helps out a ton. And you can also check out my content at twitch.tv/radsrad, where I try to stream on a daily basis Mythic Plus content. So if you guys are curious about that, then do go ahead and check me out. I appreciate that a lot. And anyway, though, without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight into it. Now for the level 15 talents, Eye of the Tiger, super solid. Chi Burst is very good as well in AoE situations, although Eye of the Tiger is just, a passive thing in the background that is doing its own thing. So I would definitely recommend to play with that one for the most part in single target. In AoE, Chi Burst is definitely better. So Freehold and Waycrest and dungeons like those, Chi Burst really shines where you can just like line a very good Chi Burst and just send it through a lot of mobs. So yeah, those are definitely your two available options there. Now for the level 30 row, the choice is between Chi Torpedo or Tiger's Lust for the most part. It just really depends on the type of dungeon you're playing in or your own playstyle really. I, for the most part, am using Tiger's Lust because I am playing with a shaman in my group. And I know that, my shaman just goes in, uses blood of the enemy, and then goes out, obviously. So what I like to do is I like to give him Tiger's Lust, and, he can easily just jump into in the pack, he uses blood of the enemy, and then jump out if he wants to. So just basically save him some globals and whatnot, right? While Cheat Torpedo is also really good in dungeons like Mudload, where you're going to be going back and forth a lot, cutting the Peacekeepers, where you can really make good use of the long distance torpedo in a very like open type of dungeon. That's where Torpedo shines. Now another, I'm just gonna squeeze in a free tip for you guys with Tiger's Lust. Now in Shadow of the Storm, on the third boss, Lord Stormsong, he does a very nasty, slow and damage dealing debuff. It's called Mind Rend, and if your healer gets mind controlled, which is one of the mechanics in that fight, you can dispel that yourself as a Brewmaster with Tiger's Lust from whoever gets it. The Mind Rend debuff that is, which is really nice to have because then you prevent a lot of damage coming in, and your healer doesn't have to really focus on going out of the MC and then healing whoever was affected by it a lot. So that's just a little freebie. At level 45 row, the choice is really just Light Brewing. Light Brewing is just super solid for Mythic Plus because of the dynamic environment that we're in. So I definitely recommend that one over any of the other two choices that we have because it gives you one extra brew and it also gives you reduced cooldown on your brews, which is very solid. So do stick with that one in Mythic Plus. And even Raids. I don't think that Blackhawk's Brew or Spitfire have a place, honestly, in the current meta. So I do recommend Light Brewing for the most part. So I do recommend Light Brewing all the time, basically. Alright, for the level 60 row, the choice is really between Ring of Peace and Blackhawk Statue. Now, 99% of the time you're going to be playing with Ring of Peace, because I've said it before, but I believe that Ring of Peace is by far the best utility spell in Mythic Plus for what it does, as you can not only split packs with it, but it also works very well against mechanics like Necrotic, for example, in some weeks. We can just easily get a free reset. And it's just a very good defensive and offensive option that you can do a lot of stuff with. You can interrupt casts with it, and save yourself with it as well. And yeah, it's just super solid overall. Well, Blackhawk Statue is fun. If you're struggling with aggro, then you can definitely run that one instead, obviously. Now for the level 75 row, this is where things get a little bit trickier. And again, you only have really two choices here. But this is where people get a little confused sometimes. So I'm just going to try to sum it up and keep it as simple as possible and just get down to the core of the abilities and what you for either one. Now the choice here is between Bob and Weave and Dampen Harm. Now Bob and Weave is very solid when it comes to physical damage because again what it does is it extends your stagger duration by 3 seconds on your debuff, meaning it's not going to be 10 seconds of taking stagger damage, it's going to be 13 seconds. Right now, consider this, right? Stagger works directly with physical damage. It works very well with physical damage. While magic damage is not staggered fully, right? Physical damage is fully staggered, meaning that Bob and Weave acting directly with it or working directly with it makes it very solid towards physical damage dungeons, right? So when it comes to physical damage, or think of Freehold, for example, Bob and Weave is very solid in what it does. So when you take in a lot of consistent physical damage that's not very bursty, it doesn't chunk you a lot, the Bob and Weave is definitely the better option there, as it smoothens out the damage intake a lot because of the additional 3 seconds on your stagger. Well, Dampen Harm is really good in dungeons where you take a lot of like bursty chunks of damage that are mostly magic damage as well. So if you're feeling like you're taking a lot of bursty damage, like dungeons, for example, Toldagor, Shrine, Siege, Mudload, those dungeons where you take a lot of like chunky damage, then Dampen Harm is definitely the play. But Bob and Weave is also the play in dungeons like, I would say maybe a tall freehold even. So yeah, do keep that in mind and just decide on your own on the fly whatever works best in the situation that you be placing yourself in. Now for the level 90 row, the choice really here is only Russian Jade Wind. I'm going to call it RJW, by the way. Russian Jade Wind is super solid for the most part. And, Special Delivery also has a place, although it's kind of awkward to play with if you haven't played with it before. So I would definitely recommend sticking to Russian Jade Wind. It's the best choice by far. It's very consistent. It does a lot of damage, and, it's just very good for what it does. While Special Delivery, it is fine in dungeons like Freehold and Underrot, I would say, but it's kind of weird to play with, and it can also break CCs. So I'm not really, I would not really recommend it for, if you're starting out with Monk. And, for the most part, Russian Jade Wind just outperforms it anyway, so just stick to Russian Jade Wind, and you can try Special Delivery out in your own time if you want to. But again, it doesn't do as much as Russian Jade Wind does anyway. Alright, for level 100 row, the choice really here is only between High Tolerance and High Tolerance. There's nothing else to it. It is High Tolerance. It's just very solid in Mythic Plus because of the dynamic environment that we're in. So I would definitely recommend sticking to it because it gives you a lot of free haste, and haste gives you quicker recharge times on your brews. As we established earlier, we're playing in a very dynamic environment where we want to consistently pull, and we don't want to have a lot of downtime. So that giving you this free haste is basically, a lot of free brews for, for nothing, right? So I definitely recommend that one over Guard or Blackout combo. Those two options are just, suboptimal, I'd say. They don't really do as much defensively or offensively even for them to be worth it in Plus. Right now that we've covered the talents and whatnot, I do want to go into the stats and how you're going to be balancing those out. So I'm just going to start off with the Mythic Plus ones. I do also want to cover or go into raid a little bit with your stats, although not as much, but yeah, I'll try to cover that too. So let's go into the Mythic Plus ones first. Now, with Monk, you want to have like a healthy balance between your stats. Not really going for one necessarily, but you do want to balance things out very well before you begin going all out in a certain stat. So you do want to get about 30 to 35% crit. Your mastery should be anywhere between 20 to 21, 22%. I'm gonna cover that in a little bit and why exactly you want that to be at that benchmark. So hold on to that percentile value. So just keep that in your head and just keep that in mind. But yeah, hold on to it, write it down somewhere. 20%, 22% mastery is fine. So just hold on to it for now. And your haste should be anywhere between 10 to 14%. Now, higher ends of haste are good whenever you're not feeling comfortable with how you manage your brews. So 14%. And then a lower percents of haste are good whenever you feel like you are completely fine with your brews and you're not really starving, quote unquote, a lot with your brews. So yeah, just keep that in mind as well. And then your versatility is the most versatile stat, the one that you want to get off a lot of. So whenever you're done with the rest of your stats, then you can just begin stacking your versatility as much as you want to. Now, when it comes to the raid ones, it's basically the same exact thing, except you can keep your haste on the lower end, or 8 to 10% haste is fine in raids because you have downtime, as you do have an off tank sometimes, or often, or pretty much all the time. So you can afford to run lower amounts of haste because you get a lot of downtime and you can recharge your brews while you're not doing that much. And in raids, you also want to prioritize versatility a lot. So you want to get a lot of versatility because single target is where versatility shines. So for raids and single target dungeons, do go for a lot of versatility. Right, now that we've covered the stats and whatnot, I want to jump into the traits and how we're going to be basically building the traits. Now, there's one main trait here, and it's called Training of Ny'alotha. Now, you want to get 3 of these in Mythic Plus. So just get 3 of them. It's just really good for overall damage and defensive value. Definitely get a 3 training on the Ny'alotha. Now, your other trait in Mythic Plus would be Boiling Brew. Now, what it does is it makes your Breath of Fire, when it deals damage, it makes it so you get a chance of spawning a little healing sphere that is really good for your healing overall. Yeah, in Mythic Plus, there's a lot of targets, so making that one really effective in Mythic Plus. And then your other talent that you want to get not as important, but it's still really good to have. It's called Elusive Footwork. Now, what it does is that whenever your Black Ops Strike crits, you get an additional stack of your mastery, which is called Elusive Brawler. Now, this is why I wanted you to hold on to the mastery value. So I'm just gonna jump into it now. So hopefully it doesn't get too confusing. But basically, you have a baseline dodge chance of 20% or 21%. So that being said, your mastery being 20% means that whenever you get hit, right? This is what it does. Whenever you get hit or you hit an enemy with Blackout Strike, you get a stack of Elusive Brawler, and that stack or that you get of Elusive Brawler is dodge chance equals to your mastery, right? So if you have 20% mastery, then you're going to get dodge chance per stack equals to your mastery, which is because you have 20% mastery, right? So by default, having 20% dodge and then one stack of Elusive Brawler gives you 20% dodge chance. That's 40% together, right? Now, if you do another stack of it, you're going to be at 60%. And if you do a third stack of it, you'd be at 80%. And then at 4 stacks, you're at 100%, right? So this is why I wanted you to hold on to it, because basically if you go over the 20% mark or benchmark, then as you can see, this percentage stacks, right? So meaning that you're going to overcap your dodge a lot, and really you just want 100% dodge, right? You don't want to be over it or under it. So this is why 20% is good, because you don't really overcap it by that much and you don't waste stats on that. Yeah. Now the other benchmark I would say would be 40% mastery, because then you have 20% dodge chance, one stack being 40%, so that's 60%, and then another stack being 40%, that's 100%, right? So that'd be the other benchmark. Although I think that that's way too many stats wasted on mastery, so that's definitely not worth it. So just stick to 20%. Now again, going back to traits, we have triple training in the Zao, one boiling brew, one elusive footwork, very solid. So that we only have one slot left in the outer rings. That being Heart of Darkness, I would recommend, because as we established, we benefit a lot from second stats, and Heart of Darkness, which is the new one from the ny'alotha raid, is really good. It's basically free stats, it's free gems or sockets basically, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, it's just very solid for what it does. Right, now for your inner rings in Mythic Plus, you want to be very defensive with your selection. So ones that give you a lot of stats, for example, like Life Speed, Blood Siphon, On My Way, the ones that give you a lot of mastery for free, or stats for free actually, are very good. And then for the innermost ones, I would recommend stuff like Impassive, Visage, Resounding Protection, and Gem Hide. Those are all very good options. But do stay away from the aggressive ones in Mythic Plus. Just go for the more defensive ones, as you do want to have a lot of self-healing and being more self-sufficient. Now in raids, the only thing that really changes is, first of all, we're cutting off Boiling Brew completely. We don't want that in raids. It's not important unless it's an AoE fight. But anyway, it's not important. And you really want to get your hands on the elusive footwork there. So one elusive footwork is definitely play. Now, when it comes to the training of the Zao traits, now this is where you can keep them a little bit, on the low. You don't really need them that much. So 1 or 2 training traits is completely fine for single target. That's fine. You don't really need more because you don't really go up to high amounts of stagger. So you can't really benefit that much from the high amounts of stagger that you usually get from Mythic Plus, because that's not really a thing in raid. You don't really go up to like crazy amounts of stagger unless it's like a very hard hitting boss. So yeah, 1 or 2 training traits completely fine. What you do want though is you do want Heart of Darkness. So try to get your hands on Heart of Darkness traits, as many as you can, and fill up those free gaps with that as much as possible, and still keep to 1 training trait at least in raids, 1 or 2 being the the optimal setup, and then fill up with Heart of Darkness and 1 elusive footwork. Now if you don't have any better options, I'd recommend still sticking to training of Nizao, or things like Blightborn Infusion, Swirling Sands, Undulating Tides. In other words, those damage dealing ones are really solid in raids. Now, as opposed to Mythic Plus, in raids, your inner rings are going to be the more aggressive damage dealing ones. The stuff like Gut Ripper or Unstable Flames. Those are very solid for you. So I definitely recommend those. And then for the innermost ones, you can be either aggressive or defensive. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, basically you want to be very aggressive with your selection in raids. Right, now that we've covered all that stuff, I'm just going to jump into the essences and what's really changed there. There's only one major change, and that's with the major. So before we used to run Conflict and Strife and get Hot Trub. Basically, whenever we purify, we deal damage, AoE damage around us. I think it's 20% of our stagger gets dealt as damage AoE. when you purify it. But now we're going to be playing with Crucible of Flame for the most part in both Mythic Plus and Raids. The reason for that is because Conflict and Strife kind of falls off because of the self-healing nerfs and the stagger nerfs as well. We can't really afford to go to like really high amounts of stagger and still feel safe. So we can't really play as greedy right now. Maybe that's gonna change with gear and whenever you're in end of 8.3, then maybe that's when things are gonna change again at the Conflict and Strife, and that'll allow us to be very aggressive with prize again. But right now I don't think it's very worth it because it doesn't really help out that much. Honestly, like the damage is either going to be the same between the two, or it's going to be in the favor of Crucible Flame, regardless. So I do recommend Crucible Flame for your major. All right, now for the minors though. Now we have Conflict and Strife available to ourselves, and we can run that in our setup as well. So basically, it's going to be the choice between Aegis and Conflict and Strife in either one slot or together in a build. But anyway, for the one slot that you're going to be running, it's going to be Aegis or Conflict and Strife. Now that'll be based on either high mob density or low mob density. All right. So if you're playing a dungeon with a lot of mobs or pools that are consisted of more than 4 mobs, or consistently or 4 mobs, Aegis is definitely better. And if you're playing a dungeon with very small pools and more single target, then I would recommend Conflict and Strife. Now for the other one, Nullification Dynamo, that is the other one that you'd be benefiting a lot from. And you can swap this out for Conflict and Strife in Freehold, where there's not a lot of magic damage, obviously. And then your last one is going to be Strength of the Warden, which is very good to fill in the gap with your self-healing. So yeah, I'd recommend those. So again, Aegis or Conflict, depending on the dungeon, high mob density, low mob density, and then Nullification for magic damage, Nullification Dynamo. And the last one is Strength of the Warden to fill in the gap with self-healing. Right, now for the trinkets and whatnot that I did kind of miss out last time, I'm going to cover those as well. Now, in Mythic Plus, you want to be very defensive again with your trinkets. You don't want to be very aggressive. So I would recommend Bloodthirsty Urchin. This is still the best trinket, I'd say. And this one drops from Lady Ashbane in the Eternal Palace. Super solid. Get your hands on that one. It's very good for what it does. Now the other ones would be either a high item level Edicts of the Faithless, again from Eternal Palace, or you can replace Edicts of the Faithless if you already have it with Lingering Psychic Shell, which is from N'y'alotha. It's on a 1-minute cooldown, and it's very good for what it does on use absorb, so it's fine. And the third one would be, or the fourth one would be Sigil of Warding, which is basically again like the Psychic Shell trinket, although it's in a longer cooldown. So I would recommend Psychic Shell instead. If you have to choose between those two. So yeah, again, Bloodthirsty Urchin as one of them, and the second one would be either Edicts, Psychic Shell, or Sigil of Warding. And if you have to choose between Edicts or those three, I would recommend Psychic Shell because of the item level. So yeah, Psychic Shell is definitely the play. Now for a raid environment, I would recommend playing a build with Coral instead. And that being said, you want a more aggressive type of setup when it comes to raiding. So Coral or Ashvane's Razor Coral is definitely one that you want to get. And then the other one is going to be either Inkpod or the Mechagon Trinket with the Cyclotronic Punch card, the laser beam. So yeah, definitely get your hands on that one. And if you want to be a little more defensive, then obviously you can run stuff like, again, Psychic Shell or Urchin or Sigil of Warding. Those are very good options as well. Now that we've covered pretty much everything, I do want to cover the corruption effects in 8.3 and what's the optimal corruption level for monks, I believe. And that'll be 39. I don't think that we want to get over 39 because we really don't have a way of dealing with the thing from beyond as a monk. The only thing that you can really do is Paralysis and Ring of Peace, and obviously you use those spells a lot in Mythic Plus, especially. In Raids, you can definitely afford to play with higher ends of corruption because you don't really use your Paralysis or Ring of Peace that much unless it's very specific. But yeah, for the most part, you can afford to play very high amounts of corruption in Raids, like say 59. However, in Mythic Plus, I would not recommend going over 39. Definitely not worth it. Do stick to 39 and don't go over it. Now for the playstyle, I don't want to really go into that much detail because it's not really that much to cover. But basically, the way you want to play your monk is you maintain your Iron Skin Brew consistently, like 100% uptime is basically what you're going for. Obviously, that's probably not going to be the case, but 100% uptime is where you want to land at. And then you want to purify anywhere between 150 stagger to 200% stagger. that's also fine. If you don't have a stagger bar, then I can leave a link down in the description for my own stagger bar, the one that I'm using. So definitely get that one if you want to. And in single target you prioritize Blackout Strike, while in AoE you prioritize Kick Smash. And yeah, that's basically it. Move a lot, collect your orbs, use your Expel Harm whenever you spike a lot. Only use your Expel Harm then at 4 or 5 orbs. And for the most part, just save, collect your orbs manually, and that will result in a lot of self healing. Anyway, though, guys, I hope this guide was of any help. I think that pretty much wraps it up. I don't think there's anything else that there is to cover. But yeah, if you guys want me to do any more Mythic Plus related stuff in the future, then do let me know. I'll try to cover that. But yeah, I hope this was of any help. If you guys liked the video, then obviously like and subscribe so I know that you liked it. And if you want to check me out on Twitch doing live stuff, that'll be at twitch.tv/radsrad. It helps out a ton as well, so I really like seeing you guys there as well. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day ahead, and I'll see you when I see you. Thank you for watching. Out.